TumbleSeed is a game where you play as a seed, or I guess you control a seed, as it tries to climb a mountain to reach the top to save the rest of seedmanity. It's not humanity. You know, same old story. We've heard it a million times in games before. TumbleSeed is a very unique game. It's very interesting, certainly challenging. And it's even challenging for me to do a review of it because I've put in a bunch of time with the game and I still don't know what way I feel about it. I'll start with the 100% positives first off. TumbleSeed has a really awesome art style. It's obvious a lot of time went into it, and that's something that I can say about the whole game itself. From top to bottom, TumbleSeed is definitely a labor of love. You can tell the developers, which to my understanding is a team of 5 people, they put a lot of time and effort into this game. It's very high quality. It's obvious they really work their asses off on it. So the overall package is definitely top-notch, and I can appreciate the time that they spent to put in for the vision that they were trying to put out there. And I think every aspect of the game really shows that, really shows the work that they put in. Visuals, audio, everything like that. So it is definitely a high-quality presentation and a high-quality experience. So I told you a little bit about the TumbleSeed story, but what do you actually do when you're playing? You control a vine, which is stretched across the entire screen from left to right, and it's down at the bottom of the screen. And that's how you move a circular seed. This seed rolls back and forth depending on how you move the joysticks. So you push the left joystick up, and the left side of the vine goes up, the right side stays, obviously, so then you have a slant, and the seed rolls that way, or you do the opposite, and the seed rolls the other way. And there's a little platform in the middle that shows you a meter that lets you know when you're perfectly centered, so your seed should stop rolling. And that's pretty much the main mechanic. There's other stuff I'm going to get into, but the main mechanic is using the 2 joysticks to slowly ascend up a mountain and avoid obstacles to try and reach the very top. Pushing a seed from the bottom of a mountain to the top. It's a simple goal, but it is not simple in execution. The controls are certainly simple, but actually getting the seed to the top of the mountain is very challenging. I would say for me it's one of the it is the most challenging game I've played on the Switch so far, and that's including Has Been Heroes. I think TumbleSeed is extremely challenging, and I think that has something to do with no matter how good you get at the game, this could be just me, but no matter how good you get at the game and how much you recognize and understand what is coming your way, there's still going to be any number of challenges and combinations thrown at you at one moment that will just be nearly impossible to surmount. The game is not afraid to really throw everything at you and really make it difficult for you to clear a path up to the top of the mountain. And then you throw in the fact that it's randomly generated, so you go through, say you die once, you start back down at the bottom of the mountain, and then you go in again and you might get similar enemies and similar obstacles to avoid, but you're getting a completely different experience. You have to create a brand new path to get through it, and it's like you're starting, in some regards, at square one. And that, like I said, makes it very challenging because you know what's coming at you, but you don't know how it's going to be thrown at you as far as what the layout's going to be. And it just loves to beat you down. But I think the randomly generated aspect of it is extremely important, because if you just went in and saw the same layout over and over again, it would get kind of boring, and obviously you'd be able to pick your way through the level and then find the least path of resistance, and there really wouldn't be much gameplay. You'd zip to the top of the mountain and that'd be the end of it. So I think the randomly generated aspect is 100% necessary, although it is ready to kick your ass at every option. You're dealing with holes, which you don't want to fall into because they hurt you and they bring you further down the mountain, and then you're also dealing with all different types of enemies which attack you in all different types of ways. So there's a lot that can get you. And it'd be pretty impossible to get through the game if you didn't have some way to give yourself a better shot of making it up to the mountain, and that's where the different seed types can come into play. So you can purchase different seeds, you can find different seeds, there's holes that you fall into where you can trade seeds for a new one, or just grab one and try it out. And they give you all different abilities, so there's like seed that lets you put spikes on the outside of you, so you can layer up spikes and they rotate as you're going up the mountain, and if enemies bump into you, they get hurt. Certain enemies take more hits than others, and when you get hit, when a spike gets hit, you lose that spike, but you have the option to grow it back. You can be a heart, and the heart lets you get more health. There's more to it than that, which I'm going to get into, but there's all different types of seeds, and you have to pick them, try them, and see how they work out for you as you're climbing up the mountain. And that's your one main way of actually making any progress. You have to find the right type of seeds that are going to be able to propel you up the mountain in a way that maybe you want to defend yourself better, or maybe you just want to load up on health so you can just plow through enemies and get up to the next portion of the mountain. It's up to you, and the experimentation with the different seeds is absolutely crucial because, like I said, if you try and do it without, depending on the layout you get, it's going to be pretty much impossible. When you're going up the mountain, you pick which type of seed you want to use, but it's not like you just say, I want the spear seed, or I want the heart seed, and then you get extra hearts, or you have a whole bunch of spears rotating around you. You have to use patches of soil, we'll call, for lack of a better term, that are placed throughout the mountain, and you have to collect these crystal things, and if you have a crystal, you can roll over this patch of ground and activate it, and basically those are your path to activating the powers that you're trying to use. So that's how you get spikes surrounding your body, or that's how you get pieces of a heart to fill up your heart meter, stuff like that. So it's not like right away you just buy that seed and you use it. It's like a real seed. You have to plant the seed and the thing you want grows out of it, and that's how you activate them. So you have to constantly be getting these, or picking up these crystals, and again, they come from enemies and they're just found on the ground and stuff like that. So you're constantly doing a million different things while you're trying to go up a mountain, and sometimes you're just on the lookout for crystals because you really want to collect a whole bunch of them, or you're like, all right, I'm gonna load up and make sure I'm covered in spikes so I can get past this first section, and then I'll regroup at the next town that I get up to, because you pass through towns as you climb up the mountain. There's just a lot of things to take care of and a lot of things to manage, and you marry those with all the things that are trying to get you and all the obstacles that are going on as you climb the mountain, and it can become very overwhelming. And then you throw in the randomly generated nature of it, and it can make things even more hectic. So there's not a time when you're in between the actual climbing portions and you're at towns, you can relax. When you go into actual gameplay, you can never take a moment to relax. You're never going to be able to rest anywhere because something's going to be coming to get you. Something's going to be moving towards you. Something's going to be flying down from the top of the screen. A monster's going to be creating more holes. A hole could open up where you're sitting, so you have to constantly be ready to 100% focus on the game and figure out your path of constant movement. As you play a little bit more, you'll learn about auras. I think they're called auras, and these are special things that you can carry with your seed, and these give you abilities that don't need to be planted, so you carry a special thing with you, and it gives you a special power. One of them will be you can lay landmines behind, or you don't get to lay the landmines, they're laid every 7 seconds. Or one of them will be a ghost, and it looks like a Pac-Man ghost, and the Pac-Man ghost will follow you and hurt enemies that it touches and stuff like that. And at first you're like, oh, thank God I have things that can finally really help me, and I can make my way up the mountain a bit easier. But then you quickly realize that's not the case, because your landmines will hurt you if you roll over them, or the Pac-Man ghost will hurt you if he touches you. So yes, they will help you and take out enemies, but they also hurt you as well. So you know, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I can appreciate like the constant grind, but you know, when you're struggling as it is and you get something and you're excited about how it's going to help you out, and then you find out that it also hurts you as well, you're like, oh man, I was looking for it to get just I mean, it does get easier, but it's never like you pick up something and you're like, yes, this 100% helps me and I'll be able to do a lot better with it. There are things that help you, but there's always a drawback. I want to be clear that I have nothing against challenging games. I love challenging games. I really appreciate that kind of gameplay loop. But with TumbleSeed, like I said, through the randomly generated nature, I feel like sometimes it's just tweaked a little too much in the favor of the game itself, because you can get a layout where there's hardly anywhere for you to pass by, like a series of holes, or any way for you to deal with a group of enemies unless you were like outfitted beyond belief with like a whole bunch of spears or some other weapon or something like that. And you know, you could prepare yourself with any number of other seeds or up your health, like I was saying earlier, but when you're going into the next portion of the game, you don't know what's going to be there. So one time it could be full of holes, one time it could have a few holes and a whole bunch of really pain-in-the-ass enemies, one time it could be both, one time it could be neither, so you don't know. And that just, you know, you're original gameplay sessions aren't going to last very long at all, maybe like a few minutes before you get taken out. And you're going to have to really grind through that stuff to get any chance of making it higher up the mountain, because you'll learn how the enemies move. Just like any game, you'll learn how the enemies move and what they do and how you can avoid them. But there's just so much, like I said, there's so much going on a level at any given time that it's hard to really react to most of it, let alone all of it. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that feel the challenge here is a bit unfair. And I don't know that I can disagree with that. Like I said, I do enjoy it, but I feel like it can just be tipped a little too far in the game's favor. For me, it's been a real love-hate situation. Well, you know, love-hate is strong, but it's the best term to describe what I felt. So I would play the game, and I'd really be into it, and I'd play a little more, and I'd get really frustrated. I'm not the type of gamer that, like, takes my controller and throws it on the ground. I don't do that. Just, you know, you play a certain section, like, 30 times over, and you're just not getting anywhere, and you're like, man, this isn't working for me. I just need to take a break, and I'll come back to it later. So I would have those situations crop up a lot. I might play for like a half hour and say like, okay, things aren't going my way, I'll come back to it later. Or I may play for a couple hours and feel like, yeah, I'm really getting the hang of things. Things are going my way. But, you know, eventually it all gets to the point where you're like, oh, I just can't climb up this mountain one more time. I need to start fresh the next day. So, like I said, love-hate, but the best compliment I can give the game is, at the end of a session, when I was feeling frustrated and I needed to take a break, I was surprised that the next day I would find myself thinking like, man, I can't wait to get back on that mountain. I can't wait to give it another shot. And, you know, I took time to think about how I wanted to approach things and some new ideas as I was playing. So I see that as a positive thing. It's certainly challenging, but the love-hate relationship, that's the best way I can describe it. So if you're easily frustrated when you play games, especially when it comes to difficulty, I don't know if this is going to be the one for you. I do want to point out that I think there's going to be one element that might turn people off right away, and it's how brutal the game is when you first start out as far as your progression goes. So let's say you have a really good run and you make it up to like the second town and then beyond that up the mountain, and you're like halfway in between the second town and the next summit, and you get killed. You go back down to the very bottom of the mountain. Yeah, it's when you realize that what happens, it's pretty soul-crushing. I can understand why the developers did it. I understand why that was put in place, but you know, it can be really tough to deal with, especially if you're not ready for it. So I imagine a lot of people are going to have some trouble with that. But I don't want to spoil things. There are side missions you can do, and I would heavily suggest that you do the side missions, because they will eventually unlock something that I found to really improve the quality of my experience. Let's say I wasn't so frustrated anymore when I died. I was still frustrated without a doubt, but I wasn't too frustrated. So again, I don't want to spoil things. I'm just saying, if you stick with it and especially focus on side quests, you should have things open up that might lessen the pain of your experience. The only other complaint I can lodge against the game comes from the tone of the game itself, like the story, I guess I'd say, and the characters. It seems like it can't decide whether it wants to be goofy and silly or wants to be like philosophical and serious, and I feel like it bounces between that kind of stuff a little too much, especially when you weigh in the soundtrack, which I think is a fantastic soundtrack. It just, I don't know how to say it, the way the soundtrack is written really gives me like a heavy, deep, like meaningful vibe. And sometimes, you know, you'll hear that kind of music and then you'll talk to characters and they'll be making like silly jokes and stuff like that. And it just, the two of them butt heads for me. It feels like there's too much of a tonal shift. I have nothing against, you know, serious movies that use humor, or funny movies that get somber at a moment. The same goes for games, obviously. But I just feel like the back and forth here was played up a little too much. And I love the feeling when a game is serious and really uses music to heighten that kind of feeling. And I loved getting that feeling from TumbleSeed, but I feel like I was taken out of it by some of the characters. So that's just me, though. You know, I'm sure a lot of people might not even care about that stuff, but I felt I had to mention that to you guys. So what do I have to say about TumbleSeed? It's the Dark Souls of seed-based gameplay. Put that on the non-existent box for the game. It is challenging. It is tough. It will make you frustrated. It is also very well done. It's obvious a lot of care and time went into it. There's a lot of effort here. It's a quality experience. It's just one that is ready to challenge you, and I think for a lot of people, it might push them over the edge. Literally, I guess. But I can't blame people for getting upset with that, because it's certainly not going to be a game for everybody, and not every game has to be. And I'm very happy the game exists. And I said earlier the best compliment I can give it is, even when I felt like I was struggling with it, the next day I was eager to go back. Another great compliment I can give it is, I'm going to go back to it now. It's not like I'm like, well, the review's done, I'm not playing that anymore. I'm going to go back and play the game. I want to play the game. I like that challenge that's there. I have accepted the level of challenge the game is giving me, and now that I have given that acceptance, I'm more free in my enjoyment of the title. Certainly, there are still times where I'm like, really? Really? Like, all this is going to happen now? Or, like, I'll have a run that just goes absolutely terribly. But that's, like I said, I've accepted it. That's the way it's going to go for me. I know I'm talking like this, and then there's going to be videos in a few days where people zip up the mountain, no problem. I mean, you could brute force it, I'm sure. But that's not what I'm in the experience for. So I will be very interested in seeing what other people can do with this game. But for me, that's how I felt. If you know what you're getting into, then I think you should be completely fine and come away very pleased with the game. Oh, and I should quickly mention, the HD rumble is fantastic. So obviously you have the seed rolling left to right, right to left. And you have the rolling sensation through HD rumble, much like you do in 1-2 Switch when you're playing that marble game. So it feels fantastic. You can feel the seed like bumping up against the walls when you hit the sides of the screen. HD rumble is really put to good use here, and it's one of the few titles on Switch so far that I think has done such an excellent job with HD rumble. So I had to note that. Now you got my full opinion as far as I know. If you end up picking this game up, hit up the comments and let me know what you think. I'd be really interested to hear how you guys are getting the experience and what you're getting out of it, and if it's made you, if it's pushed you to throw a controller through a wall or something like that. Hopefully not. But yeah, if you pick it up, let me know. I'd love to hear. Hey guys, RMC here from Go Nintendo. If you like what you saw in the video, why don't you give us a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe? We'd love to have you. If you want to see what else we're up to, you can check out GoNintendo.com for 24-hour Nintendo news. You can visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/GoNintendo. You can check us out on Twitter at Twitter.com/GoNintendoTweet. And we're even over on Instagram at Instagram.com/GoNintendo. I put all the links in the description just to make it easier for you guys to follow. Thanks a lot!